Hey, thanks for joining me today for episode 17 of Business in the Bedroom, a bootstrapper's guide to doing it. I'm your host, producer Jemmy, providing practical advice for the newbie entrepreneur. And today I'm going to talk to you about laying the groundwork to build a team. In other words, systemizing to scale your success. That just means I couldn't come up with a title. I couldn't decide. This episode is brought to you by Flintstone Media. Listen in and let's do this. As you heard on the last episode, business can certainly have its ups and downs, and I couldn't have weathered the turbulence of the last few weeks so well if I didn't have such a great team in place. Honest to God, I was more grateful to them in these last few weeks than ever before. So I thought this was a good time as any to start chatting about this idea of when and how to grow yourself from a solopreneur to having a supportive team. Now, there's a lot we could touch on here, including the process for hiring, the process for firing, figuring out pay levels, et cetera, and I'll cover all that with you in due time. But today, I'll start by focusing on what I think are the three most important things to keep in mind. One, scaling the spirit of your business alongside scaling its output. Two, identifying the piece of the puzzle you should keep under your umbrella to maintain that spirit in your business. And three, getting the process flows in place to pass on the rest of the work. So whether expanding to a team is something on your horizon for right now, or if that is something that is a milestone way further into your future, you'll want to make some decisions now and take some notes now. So here we go. So ironically enough, the cornerstone of how I approached expanding out my business into a team came from one of my team members himself, but well before I hired him. My lead sound engineer and composer, Charles, has been a personal friend of mine for years and years and years, and he's actually one of my son's godfathers, my brother being his other. And I remember when Charles was introducing our church to the band that he had been putting together for the new albums he was working to compose, a band called Hymnal. And to give you some context, he composes music rooted in traditional Christian hymns, but with his own arrangement to speak to a more modern audience. And he also composes a lot. I call him a music note with legs for a reason. He composes a lot of original music that at its core is super spiritual and purposeful. So I'll include a link to his music in the show notes in case I have successfully piqued your curiosity. Done and done. But as he was explaining why he chose each band member that he chose to work with, Charles described how he always looked to discover their why for playing music. And that really struck a chord, no pun intended, really struck a chord with me and stuck with me. So he needed to know why each musician picked up their instrument and why they get up on stage and why they play. Why are they doing it? What is their motivation? So understanding the essence of each musician's mindset for Charles was key in building the band and making sure that all the pieces not only fit well together, but, and this is the key point I'm really trying to drive home, not only that they fit well together, but also that the picture they created still represented his initial vision as a whole, just now scaled up beyond himself and into a full band. So that outlook on team building has always stuck with me. So thank you, Charles, for years ago planting that seed in my very impressionable brain. And so now, years later, when I knew I had to scale up my business and create a team that could help increase in the volume of my business's output, I also kept Charles's concept of team building top of mind, focusing on scaling up the spirit and the culture of my business alongside with scaling up its output. I don't know, maybe this was just Charles's long-term ploy to get me to hire him. Maybe it was very subliminal. I don't know. But anyways, what did all of that end up meaning for me? You know, scaling up the spirit, scaling up the culture. And what does it mean for you and your business? Well, it means that the most important thing for you to nail down first is, well, the most important thing. What is it about your business that is the cornerstone of its uniqueness? That's what you have to identify first. So for Charles, there are a lot of talented musicians who had the chops to be part of his band, but only a few had the right spirit. And that essence of seeing yourself as a vehicle of music, for music to flow through and flow out of and create an atmosphere that really helps other people who are looking to be one with God and be in a certain spiritual place, that really helps those people, helps others settle into their own spiritual essence. That is what was most important to his vision of music composition. And that was what he needed to see in each member of his band. For me, I knew that I needed people on my team that truly were in love with podcasting and the power that it can be in someone's life in so many different ways, right? Whether that is through storytelling, sharing your own story, through creating fictional stuff, like dropping knowledge, like I'm kind of doing on this show, maybe pat on the back. But the power of podcasting, I needed to know that other people understood that and really got it. So when I was looking for people to join the team for editing, I needed to get the sense that they had a really good instinct for the theater and the purpose of each individual audio experience that a podcast episode brings. So that was the kind of editing that I love to produce. And that was the kind of editing that I wanted to see continue to scale within my team. So that is the first key point. Be sure to scale the spirit and the culture of your business alongside scaling its output of products or services. Okay. So that brings us to the next main point, identifying the piece of the puzzle you should keep under your umbrella to maintain that spirit in your business as you scale. You need to identify that key piece, if there is one, that you need to keep handling yourself because it truly can't be duplicated. For example, if you are building a jewelry design business, then it could be that your main contribution isn't the business savviness you need for growth, but rather the brand's distinctive design and your eye for the different elements and pieces and ways to put it together for creating that distinctive design. So you need to make sure that the design direction always stays under your range. For me, I know that the differentiator between my business and other podcast production houses is my onboarding process. My business as a whole is never meant to feel to my clients as a podcast factory. We are not that. It's not about churning out thousands and thousands and thousands of episodes every year. That's not what it is. It's always meant to keep that boutique feeling with personalized attention for my clients. And part of how I accomplish that is in the sense that my clients know that I, at the end of the day, am the one who's checking and QCing everything. I'm leading the team and the processes. I'm setting the tone. I'm making the decisions on divvying up and dividing up the work amongst my team. I'm watching deadlines, et cetera, da, da, da. But it also means that I'm available if they want to have me take a deep look at their show and talk strategy at any time. And I set that tone with each and every client through my onboarding process. And it is important that they feel that way throughout the entire time of our working together and producing their show. It's important to them that they feel that way because that is the essence I'm trying and have established with my business. And that tone is very one-on-one. I truly understand their goals. I'm mentally and emotionally invested in their success. It means something to me. And that needs to be felt by them as much on day one as on day 101 or on day 1001. But the cornerstone that makes that work is that I continue to personally handle their onboarding and producing their first couple of episodes to set the template for their show before assigning the show to a particular editor on the team. So my being able to take that time and show them that personalized attention is unbelievably important as a point of distinction for my business apart from other podcast companies that have begun popping up in the last couple of years. But Behind the curtain, my business needs to be as efficient as a factory at all times. And that is where I've had the space in my business to scale and to bring in the amazing people as I've been privileged to have as part of my team. And that brings us to the third step in this process, getting the process flows in place to pass on the work. And that applies to both the process flows for your clients and the process flows for your internal business as well. So the first part of laying the groundwork down toward building a team is to wrap your arms around your processes and create systems within your business that you run, even if you're the only one still running it. Okay. Even well before you begin the hiring process itself, right? This is going to help you figure out what the processes are. It's going to help you figure out what roles you need to fill very specifically. It's going to help you end up writing the description for those roles. It's going to help in a lot of ways, but you just have to begin by laying the groundwork. So as you are continuing to build the business as a solopreneur, envision how the business will need to run when you are starting to build it into a team. So let's start with the process flows for your clients. Think about what are the client's entry points? How do they get into the company and what are all the touch points of communication, all that? Then think about what is their service cycle? What are the different phases of them being a client? Is there initial onboarding like I have, and then they go into kind of a lather, rinse, repeat situation? Is it the kind of business where there is an exit for that client that naturally happens and is expected and anticipated through the service or product that you provide? So what are those client entry points? What is the service cycle? What are the exit points? Identify all that stuff. And then what are the parts of those processes that you as a business owner and leader can turn into that lather, rinse, repeat situation with a process that can eventually be taught and passed on to new team members. So you don't have to do all the things on all the stuff on all the touch points all the time. And then you can scale. It's like magic. So in terms of working with clients, what are the pieces of the life cycle that could be done by a new team member? For me and my business, as I mentioned before, I've always kept the onboarding under my direct workload. Eventually, it is my goal to have my team observe the process to even better understand the spirit of the business in terms of the approach that I take with the clients. But the onboarding itself and all the consultation that goes along with it will remain my responsibility. As far as out as I can see for my business, it will remain my responsibility. But there are certainly pieces of the show launch process that I can have my team begin to take over. Once the client and I have discussed and decided on all the essentials of their show, the title and the description and everything else within the show, then someone on my team can be trained to create the client's hosting account, set up their show with those specifics we decided on, and submit the show to the platform. So that's just an example, right? There is no Flintstone Media essence to those parts of the process. And so those are the things that I'll be looking to eventually pass on. But helping the client make those decisions and bringing all the podcasting knowledge and experience to the table for that and doing that in a particular way is what I need to keep doing, as that is the Flintstone Media's point of distinction. So I'll hold on to that process of helping the customer with the development of the show and all the decision making that goes along with it. But the to-do list that process generates, that can be passed on. So take the same look at your own business. What is the key piece that you need to keep responsibility over to maintain your business's point of distinction and differentiation? But then what are all the other pieces that you can lay the process groundwork for now to be able to work toward passing them on to a team member later? Then, aside from the work that you do for clients, there's also a whole lot of work I bet you do just to keep the business functions running. These can be, for example, your billing and invoicing, your social media, e-blasts, your marketing, your website stuff, your proposals, your sales calls and follow-ups, putting contracts together, getting them signed, purchasing supplies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And some of this is in the to-do list of stuff for your internal business that is stuff that you need to keep on because it might still apply as being very specific to you. As an example, the follow-up calls for sales, that may be something that is very much in your wheelhouse. But for another business, another person, that might be something that they are more than happy and eager and willing and dying to pass on to someone else. So these lists are a little bit fluid depending on your business. But the question is the same. What are the internal processes for the running of your business that you can identify as what you need to keep doing yourself, either because there's a mission critical creative element like the design of the jewelry, for example, or financial reasons. For example, you can't afford someone to create the graphics every week for your social media pushes. That might be it. Whatever. Like there might be things that you just need to keep on your plate. But then what are those things that you can systemize out? So if you are a chef opening a vegan restaurant, for example, right? Choosing the suppliers for your different ingredients could be a part of the process you want to really, really be involved in. To another restaurant owner who has a more generalized menu, they may not be as dialed into the process of picking the different ingredients because the sources aren't as important. But in your case, Mr. Vegan or Mrs. Vegan restaurant owner, the source of your ingredients is a point of distinction for your business. So for you, that might be something you're very heavily involved in. But then the habit of staying on top of pricing fluctuations and keeping proper volume of supplies on hand and placing orders, et cetera, all of that can probably not only be systemized out, but even be passed on to someone whose specific strength is in product supply and management, right? So I'm sure there's a technical term for that, especially in the restaurant industry. But if you ever had a misfortune of being one of my tables back in my early 20s when I was a server, you know that I know nothing and learned nothing about restaurant operations. So whatever that is called, the person who makes sure that the supplies are on hand for the kitchen, that might be something that you do because you are a vegan restaurant owner and you need to be on top of it. It also might be something you can very much pass on because it can be very systemized. So you're going to have to take a look at your own specific business and your own specific businesses, specifics. So now that you have the tasks for your clients and for your internal business operations picked out, now you need to translate those tasks into process flows to pass along. So first, take that to-do list you created for the parts of your client lifecycle that you can pass on and that to-do list of internal and administrative business work and evolve them into a process that is as streamlined and as systematized and repeatable as you can make it. Process all those things out. Give it structured file organization. Here I go with my favorite thing to recommend, as my brother always points out, create templates. Create some templates for the different things, whether it's the emails that get sent or the spreadsheets that get used, whatever, create templates. And actually document the process that you go through at each touch point of the client life cycle as an example, so that you can have those references not only for training your future team, but also for creating consistency and keeping that consistency as new team members come on board, and as a place for those new team members to have a reference point for information as they are learning their responsibilities and roles. Then, honestly, hire people who are or have the potential to be better than you at those specific talents and skills and begin to pass those tasks along as you can. So in a future episode, I'll dive into the financial how of building your team, but at least how this bootstrapped, self-funded entrepreneur did it. But for now, I hope that this all helps you figure out that right approach for you and your business to lay that groundwork down to build your team. As I very heartily expressed in the last episode, having a good team with you by your side can make all the difference. And how you set them up for success can make all the difference for them. Thanks for tuning in. I'm assuming you're listening to this because you're either running a business in your bedroom or are thinking about it. Well, I want to hear from you, and so do all the other fellow listeners in this Business in the Bedroom classroom with you. If you have anything to add here or to argue with me about, or if you want to ask a question as you are going for your goals, you can have your voice featured right here on the show. Head to the show's website, bizinthebedroom.com. Hit the big button and record your message. I really, honest to God, cannot wait to hear from each and every one of you. The conversations that I get to have with fellow dreamers becoming doers, fellow business in the bedroom makers on Clubhouse are so much fun. So leave me a message and I get to hear from you. And I don't want to forget to mention also that there is now an awesome way for you to support and influence this show and gain a ton of extra tips, resources, and action items that can really propel you forward. It's called Becoming a Patron through the Dreamers Become Doers Patreon program, a more exclusive community for those really wanting to supercharge their way to success. And you can find the info on how to join also at bizinthebedroom.com. So Biz in the Bedroom, find it on Facebook, find it on Patreon, and also, as briefly mentioned, and as mentioned in previous episodes, find it on Clubhouse too. And bizinthebedroom.com is also where you can go to email me. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and to join the free Dreamers Become Doers group that I just mentioned, both on Facebook and on Clubhouse. So again, that's bizinthebedroom.com. All right, that's a wrap for you. Remember to hit it hard, keep the lights on.